5 essentials, I talked briefly about this, but maximize your mind, maximize your diet, maximize your exercise, minimize toxicity, maximize your nervous system or your neuro, which is essentially your spine. You do work on all 5 of those things, you will become a healthier person. Absolutely. And so all our talks are geared towards hitting some of those essentials. General truths. So be consistent, be diligent, be long-term, be dedicated. I always say all diets work because I've seen Weight Watchers work, I've seen South Beach diet work, I've seen Atkins diet work, I've seen paleo diet work. I've seen them all work. They all work. But one of the biggest factors is that you are dedicated and you give it enough time to work. You're not cheating on it. You're consistent. You're consistently eating it. Now, of course, some of these are longer term than others. So if you're eating what's the MetaFast, I think, or they have expensive meal plans and stuff. If you're rich and you can afford the meal plans all the time, then by all means stay on it forever. But most of those end, and then they say, okay, now go back to whatever you were doing. And what happens when you go back to the same diet you were doing? You tend to find yourself in the exact same place that you were, right? So when you make a change, you make it for life. You are dedicated to it. You're consistent with it. You don't beat yourself up if you cheat once in a while, because everyone cheats once in a while. It's okay. Indulge there, very small amount, but stay on track. Stay on target. Water. Does anyone not know how important water is? It's pretty important. 70% of your body is made up of it. We also recommend that you put trace minerals in your water. You can maximize your water. Are you going to talk about that a little bit? Yeah, so another great thing is to put sea salt, like pink sea salt, Himalayan sea salt, a little sprinkle in your water. The minerals, the nutrients in there make your water superpowered. There's also a lot of stuff with water. I do a whole class on water because some water's more acidic than others. Some is, you buy a bottle of water, you think, well, this is awesome because it's in a bottle, but it's really just tap water. In fact, I'd say tap water is better than some of those bottled waters. So knowing what to drink, never drink a bottle of water that's been heated because the BPHs from the plastic leach into the water. So getting a good source of water, drinking lots of water or enough water, huge. And cellular hydration is huge. That's why we put minerals in the water. Organic eating, we've talked about this. GMOs, genetically modified organisms, the whole thing, I think, is drastically changing the landscape of our world. We are creating crops that we can't even eat, like corn. The corn, the genetically modified corn, which is the vast majority of the middle of this country, is we can't even eat it. So it produces like corn, but when you bite into it, it tastes terrible and it's all chalky. And so that corn is being used to create high fructose corn syrup as well as other products. Soy is another one. We're creating soy that we can't even eat. So when you look at a lot of this stuff, it makes organic eating that much more logical. When you eat organic, you're helping local farms, for example. I know Stacy's going to be talking about eat locally, eat seasonally. So when you're eating stuff that came from far away, like came from South America, to make that trip, they have to spray it with stuff. And they quite often pick it way too early and then bring it over here and spray it, which ripens it in an unnatural way. So the other thing is with organic, there's lots of different categories that it falls into. There is 100% organic, which is what we tell people to try and buy. 100% organic means that it was non-genetically modified. They use natural fertilizer and they use natural pesticides. So stuff that exists in nature. It wasn't chemically produced. There's also certified organic, which doesn't have the 100%. Both those are USDA, categorized. But the 95% can be sprayed with non-organic pesticides. So those aren't quite as good. Wash them. Always wash vegetables or fruits that they're still certified organic, but they don't have the 100% there. The 100% means that they don't use any unnatural products.
When are they certified
Why?
Yeah, you're saying they're still being sprayed.
Well, they in order to get the certified organic, they have to be 95%, which means they're not genetically modified. They didn't use inorganic fertilizer, and they didn't spray it with like another coating of some sort. But they are allowed to use the pesticides to try and kill the bugs and stuff. Yeah, they're neurotoxins. So that they cannot have the 100% label on that organic, but they can say certified organic as long as it's 95%.
Isn't it CCOF till?
The
The
cer-
certification we want to look for?
Yeah, that's the highest level. Yeah, but this is like the USDA thing. This is what you're going to find in grocery stores. Or if it just says organic, it has to be 70%, which means they can use inorganic fertilizer, they can use inorganic pesticides, that kind of stuff. But the actual food itself has to be from real seeds, non-genetically modified, that kind of stuff. They still don't have labels that say, used GMO products on foods, but some foods have gone that extra mile, and they'll say on there, no GMO contained in this food. Obviously, that's good, because I think genetically modified, even though the Harvard study showed that it was equal, if you've ever eaten an egg or seen an egg, that you crack open an egg that's fully organic versus one that's created with the genetically modified chickens and all that kind of stuff, they are totally different. They look different. They have different colored yolks. Everything's different about them. And when you taste them, they taste different. So you remember that commercial that it was for high fructose corn syrup, and it had people eating in a field of corn, and they're all sitting down to eat and they're drinking, and it says they're eating high fructose corn syrup. It seems they can't tell the difference between real sugar and high fructose corn syrup, and it says neither can your body. Your body can't tell the difference either. So feel free to eat non-organic, this high fructose corn syrup. That's so ridiculous that it doesn't even, for them to even put a commercial out there is laughable to me, because your body can tell the difference. That's like saying your body's so stupid it won't even tell the difference. But of course, I've just been telling you, your body's super intelligent. It's way more intelligent than we will ever know. So when you eat real foods, non-genetically modified, non-sprayed with chemicals, all that kind of stuff, you're going to get much better results as a result. Yeah. So the truth is, there's always a cost, right? So we get cheap food, genetically modified. We spray the what out of it. We kill all the bugs. They grow way taller, all that kind of stuff, and we get way more food, and we eat it. But the cost, and it might be cheaper, but the cost is it'll cost us way more in healthcare later on, because the food doesn't make us healthy. It's not really feeding our body the same way as organic food would be. There's also, the Harvard study doesn't mention it. The Harvard study says we can make this much food on this much land from non-organic means, but it would take this much land to make organic fruits and vegetables. That's not actually true. And they've shown this over and over, that if you have an organic farm and you do it the right way and you turn it over the right way, you can produce just as much food. And more, potentially. The problem is that with all the other sprays and all the other stuff, you're damaging the food in a lot of ways. And non-organic farmers beside organic farmers doesn't work, because those non-organic seeds are like weeds. They take over a field in no time, which is one of those things that, for example, I could say to a crowd, if I take genetically modified salmon and I put it in a stream and I come back a year later, all the real salmon are gone. They can't compete, because the genetically modified salmon grow so much faster, they reproduce so much faster, they eat all the food, and so it kills off the real salmon, right? And they say, yeah, we shouldn't introduce genetically modified salmon into the wild, but it's okay to grow our plants and crops genetically modified right beside everyone else. That's not going to take over. It's not logical. Does that make sense? So organic, that's why we say eat organic. Fats are vital. We're good. Well, let me just finish this. Cage-free, grass-fed, free-range. What does it all mean? It is implied that obviously it's better than chickens live in a cage or animals live in a cage, whatever it is. But that has nothing to do with what chemicals they give the animals, if they're feeding animals hormones or antibiotics or anything. So all that is marketing BS. A free range. They might be out, but they all might be genetically modified. So, for example, feedlots where they have chickens and they have these gigantic barns and they just have chickens as far as the eye can see, and they're all living in their own filth and all that kind of stuff. They're being fed this genetically modified garbage food that's just like making them huge. They're cage-free. And that's, they can't stand up and walk around, but it doesn't matter, they're not in cages. So I can put cage-free. So don't be fooled by those other things, free range, all that stuff. Organic beef, different. Grass-fed, we went to a farmer's market and asked about grass-fed, someone had grass-fed beef, and they said, yeah, it's grass-fed until the last month, and then we fatten them up with sugar. Well, that's not as good. Why don't you just keep them fed, grass till the end? Keep them happy till their last month. And I said, well, they double the size, If I feed them sugar right before they die, and, by sugar I mean they feed them corn, it's grains, yeah. Fats are vital for your health. If you haven't learned this already, I've been saying this for 20 years. Through the whole non-fat craze, get your fats out, non-fat foods and reduced fat foods and all this kind of stuff. Fats are vital. And the reason that I said it was because your nervous system is like wires of electricity. And the insulating part of the wire, so you don't just hold a wire, you hold the wire with the rubber insulation around it. That's why a plug-in cord, you can hold it. If it didn't have the insulation, it would zap you. Nerves are the exact same. They have an insulating layer around it, and that insulating layer is made up of fats. It is vital to eat fats. Fats are a huge component. In fact, the paleo diet, the new ketosis diet, is good vegetables, good fats. Healthy proteins. And that's been a huge thing for the last maybe 5 or 6 years. But we were preaching that long before, even when everyone said, cut the carbs out, cut the fats out. Fats are vital, good, healthy fats. I know Stacy's going to go over that. Blood sugar and diabetes. And Stacey's also going to go over that with inflammation. Sugar causes inflammation within your body. Inflammation is the heart of just about every disease we suffer from. Cancer, diabetes, you name it. Inflammation is the cause. Sugar is the main cause of that. Sugar also feeds yeast in your body. So when you eat sugar, when you eat it from a fruit, something like that, is a little different than when you eat the high fructose or the highly refined stuff. So sugar is always, you've got to be careful with sugar, which means your carbohydrates and all that kind of stuff. Recognizing addictions and getting help. So sugar is the #1 addiction that people have. A lot of people think it must be caffeine or alcohol or drugs or whatever it is. Sugar is #1 by a long shot. We are all addicted to sugar in this room. When you look at foods, processed foods have 3 things that are instantly addictive. What are those 3 things? Sugar, salt, fat. Combinations of sugar, salt, fat. What's a potato chip? Sugar, salt, fat. What's chocolate? Sugar, salt, fat. Everything is in combination of sugar, salt, and fat. When we touch it on our tongue, it stimulates 3 different sensors, which instantly causes neurologic change in our brain. They've shown this when you eat potato. I bet you can't bite just one, right? They're taunting you. They're saying you can't bite just one because it's so addictive and you want it. So recognizing that addictions play a big role in eating is huge. Getting help, just like if you were an alcoholic and you knew you were an alcoholic and you wanted to get help. Get on a program. Get someone to oversee what you're eating. Go through a nutritional program of some sorts, because that is so much more effective than trying to do it on your own or trying to recognize stuff on your own. Make sense? So Before I give the floor over to Stacy, the one thing I want you to recognize, though, is that your body has the capacity for health and for healing. Every time, I will say, if you put a wheel on the top of a mountain, it'll roll downhill. How many times out of 100? 100. How many times out of 1,000? 1,000. It rolls downhill because gravity, because that's the intelligence within. It'll never roll uphill, ever. Your body's the same way. If you start feeding it better, if you start exercising it better, if you start mentally helping yourself, working on your relationships and keeping yourself positive, your body moves to a healthier state 100% of the time. Even if you don't feel better, it's still rolling downhill. So when you recognize that, you start to say, okay, good. I'm going to start creating a better environment for myself, for my body, internally and externally. You do that 100%. That's why we're here on this planet. That's why we have these talks, is to try and learn that kind of stuff and better yourself every day. Make sense? Cool. Stace?
So some of you don't know me. I'm Dr. Russ's wife, Stacy, but I'm also the nutrition counselor here, and I'm also the holistic health coach. And I really have grown to love this work because I actually have a couple of clients in here today, and just watching people make smart choices in their lives and committing to making change and then seeing the benefits of it is like very satisfying to me as a health coach, is journeying that with them and watching the changes and having them make connections and aha moments to why we eat what we do, kind of getting the understanding of the addiction process, what's the emotional component of why we eat the foods we do, and trying to really get those under control or break past them, or just having better tools to cope with them. And that's kind of what I feel like part of our work is here to do. So I've given you a number of handouts in your folder. Actually, before I go on to that, when you had asked about I give one per family, sorry. I can get you your own if you really want it. When you were talking about organic food being so expensive, I'll tell you, my husband's from Canada, and you go up there and you try to find organic food. First of all, it's very difficult. And secondly, it's really, really expensive. So we are very blessed to live where we do and have access to fresh fruits and vegetables all year round. You should never even have to consider buying food that's from another country. We grow so much of it in our own country and in this state especially. So just to keep that in mind. So we talk about inflammation. You know, there's acute inflammation and there's chronic inflammation. Acute inflammation is necessary. You know, you stub your toe, you cut your finger, you want inflammation to go there to heal. And then once it's done its healing process, everything goes back to normal. Chronic inflammation does not work that way. What we find is as we contribute more and more to poor eating habits, to standard American diet, to the toxins and pollutants out in the air, all of those start to take a toll on us. And so that sort of chronic inflammation is always there. And unless we're willing to kind of change our eating habits, detox our body, we'll actually create more and more problems. And you can see on the handout that I've given you the markers of chronic inflammation. Several of these are why people come into my office in the first place. You have constant fatigue and low energy, asthma and allergies, generalized swelling and water retention. One of the other ones I see a lot is the high levels of emotional stress. And the thing you have to realize with emotional stress is your body does actually not know the difference between a bear chasing you, breaking a leg, and eating a candy bar. They all affect your body in the same way. So it's all intense inflammation on the body. So it's important to recognize that when you're under a lot of stress, whatever's going on in your own life, and then you feed your body, you know, the bad stuff because it kind of tastes good in the moment, it's just kind of compounding the problem. So that's why people also come in, is to kind of deal with the emotional stuff. One of the main ones too is number 9, the excess weight, especially around the waist. And this is what happens as we get older, or even as we are not eating well, we start to have that insulin resistance that builds up. And that's one of the areas it shows. So you may or may not find yourself on any of these markers along the way, skin irritations and rashes. The thing to realize is as we detox, there's only 3 ways to detox: through urine, through feces, and through the skin. So when your body's trying to get rid of all this excess stuff in the body, that's where it's going to show up. Could be rashes, could be acne, could be constipation or diarrhea. I mean, there's all these different things that we experience. And a lot of times we just think, oh, it's probably just the one thing I ate that day. But usually it's a cumulative effect. So causes of chronic inflammation. Alan hit on most of them, but I'll just highlight them a little bit more. Sugar, of course, we already know that, and we've covered that one, as well as the processed foods. So we know that combination of processed foods, it's got a lot of sugar, it has a lot of the bad oils, the hydrogenated oils, and it has the refined grains. So that combination, think of that like your chips, like your Cheez-Its, like any of the processed stuff that is basically in the middle of the grocery stores. Best to always shop on the outsides because that's where the healthiest, most natural foods are. But that stuff in the middle is what kind of calls at us. That's the craving stuff, right? That sugar addiction. The oils and fats. And we're talking about the bad fats again. We're talking about the industrial seed vegetable oils, canola oils and safflower oils and corn oil. We never want to cook with those. We definitely don't want to heat them. They're already heated too much. They've been bleached. Any nutrients that possibly could have been in them are no longer in them. So when we put those in our body does not know what to do with it. It doesn't get processed through and eliminated properly. So it goes into storage, somehow in the cells, right? Whether it shows up as inflammation or fat, either way. Conventional dairy, so pasteurized, homogenized dairy is full of a lot of hormones and antibiotics. Really best to eat or drink raw dairy if you can. It's a little hard to find that. So at least looking at the organic dairy is the next best thing for you to do. And I'll cover a lot of the things that will really support a more anti-inflammatory diet. Grains. We hear a lot about grains. Grains spike the insulin level. We're talking about the white grains and the flours and things like that. When they spike insulin level, you become insulin resistant. And when that happens, you create belly fat. It's all a vicious little cycle that goes on. So it's really important to minimize grains or cut them out altogether if that's something that you've been thinking about doing. And then finally, the other one is nightshades. This doesn't apply to everyone, but some people actually have a very strong reaction to nightshades. And it lists what those are: tomatoes and potatoes, eggplants, what other things are in there? Goji berries, bell peppers, hot peppers. A lot of things that are in most of our foods that we eat, and a lot of people like these things. I like these things. But if you look at some of the symptoms that people experience, joints and muscle ache, there could be inflammation connecting to arthritis. And what I really recommend for my clients when they come in is to cut that out for a while. Take a 30-day break from those kind of foods, see how your body feels, and then start slowly reintroducing them. And as you slowly reintroduce, you see how your body responds. When we clean our body out and we give it stuff that it does not like, it lets you know instantly, right? Yeah, and the more clean you get, the faster the reaction is to the stuff that doesn't feel good. Okay, so anti-inflammatory foods and lifestyle techniques. So eating real, fresh, whole food is always the best. I know our lifestyle doesn't always allow us to do that, but if you made that the majority of your eating habits every day, you'll reap the benefit of that without a doubt. So Alan had already talked about the high quality animal products. So to the best of your ability, when you're getting organic, grass-fed, pasture-raised, not to be confused with pasteurized, foods, then you get more of the, like with the pasture-raised foods like chickens, you're going to get more of the omega-3s, the good quality that you want. When you get grain-fed animals, you get more of the omega-6s, which we don't want in excess. We already have a lot of that through the bad oils and things in our diet. Good fats. And my clients who work with me, they know we talk about good fats a lot. You really want to start introducing, if you're not already doing this, better oils. Extra virgin olive oil, coconut oil, grass-fed butter, ghee, which is clarified butter. These are going to be great sources for cooking and just good sources of fat for you. Of course, everything in moderation. You're not going to just start loading up on those, but when you're cooking, those are the ones you want to use. Raw nuts and seeds and raw dairy, again, also being good sources of fats. So, yeah,
On that note,
yeah,
Sprouts has raw almonds on sale.
that's cheap.
That is really cheap.
See, if you do a little of the research, so many stores, I mean, even Costco's kind of finally gotten on board.
Yep.
You can find a lot of what you need. You do, you have to read their things. But Sprouts, Trader Joe's, any of the grocery stores now, they all have their own organic section. So I do recommend that we don't have the excuse anymore to say, I don't know where to find it. Even the farmers markets, making sure when you talk to them where their source is though. Variety of fruits and vegetables. This is a big part of decreasing the inflammation, getting more antioxidants in your body. You really want to vary your fruits and vegetables. The idea is to try to not repeat the same foods. Like if you have something on one day, like a Monday, try not to have it again until Wednesday. It allows your body to get all the nutrients and vitamins from different types of food sources, and also gives your body a rest from something maybe you're overindulging in. So that's something to think about. Fermented foods. Does anyone ever make sauerkraut in here, or has anyone ever made homemade?
Actually made, we got all the stuff to do it.
Yeah, fantastic. Really, really good for you.
I just mentioned, just throw it in a bucket of water for the night.
Yeah.
Fermented them.
Yeah, and you can make almond milk if you want from that as well. He's like, no. But that, kimchi, sauerkraut, beets, all of those are really a great source of an anti-inflammatory. Bone broth. These two can hook you up with great bones because they gave us some beef bones this last year, and I made ridiculous amounts of bone broth. My freezer can barely contain all of it, but I've used a lot of it too.
It's amazing how fast.
Oh,
it is.
yeah. But the whole idea with it is it helps heal the gut. If you have leaky gut issues, which happens with, think about it, the gut itself is 70% of the immune system. So when our gut is not properly protected, when the lining starts to erode, which is basically what leaky gut is, then you are more susceptible to other things. Food passes through, and instead of digesting and metabolizing properly, it's kind of things are going into the blood system, creating a lot of the fatigue and the exhaustion and things like that. So when you do bone broth, it helps heal the gut, but it also helps to seal it. So that it has a tremendous effect. You can do it with chicken bones, you can do it with turkey. I've never actually done the turkey, but I've done the beef as well. And they all have a very unique taste, and it's fantastic.
Really says someone that we can order.
The bones?
Package is bone broth.
Yeah.
They have both chicken and beef.
It's actually already made for you. Yeah, I saw it at Sprouts too. They have them in the containers. I haven't tasted those, so I'm not sure how good they are. Yeah, it is easy to make, but you need a couple days cooking on your stove. And if you're ever wanting recipes, just come see me. I can connect you with all of that. But you're right, Beverly, that's great that they're now selling it at the stores to give people, who don't want to bother with all that cooking.
Are they cooking it long enough? That's the question.
Well, that is a good question. We do,
You have to ask them how long.
yeah.
It has to be cooked for at least 3 days.
Yeah, you can drink it itself, like especially if you're not feeling well. I find that's like the best time. I always push off all my bone broth on my friends when they've got a little cold or flu. But you can also use it as a base for any kind of soup. You can. I've started actually sautéing a lot of my vegetables in broth rather than using oils and stuff. And I love that. Sometimes I'll poach my fish actually in the broth, and it just gives it a sort of a different flavor. So just other ways of cooking. It's not just a sip. But it is a great way to do that if you're not feeling well. Fresh spices and herbs. You probably heard a lot about turmeric and ginger and cinnamon, but I've actually added for you in the back pages here the top 15 anti-inflammatory foods and exactly why each of those works as well as it does. But the turmeric and the ginger are so great. They're antibacterial, they're antifungal, they're going to help heal that gut as well, so if you have that leaky gut issue. In fact, they make them, you can eat them cooked or raw in your food, so it's basically like using a microblade and shaving them into your food. But now you can also make tea. Like they have teas that are in the stores now. You can either do it with your own pieces of ginger or just buy them pre-made. But the more you drink that, like drinking green tea, drinking ginger tea, it just helps with all that inflammation in the body. Also the things, and we know this, right? How often do we hear we need 8 to 10 hours of sleep? Here's the thing you really want to consider. If you don't make a lot of changes in your lifestyle, here are a few really essential ones. Number one, make sure you stop eating 2 hours before you go to bed. Basically, it's like a cleaning crew has to come in at night and clean up all the mess we've made from the day. If we don't stop eating, there's no time. We're still digesting as we're going to bed when really that time needs to be for healing. So that would be the first thing, is making sure you stop 2 hours before bed. And then also making sure you're getting a minimum of 8 hours. I know some people can operate on less, but it does have a cumulative effect. So if you can make it up somewhere else in the day, whether it's just putting your feet up, closing your eyes for a minute, that rest is essential to your overall health. Sunshine, vitamin D, we don't want to be out in the mid-heat of the day, especially where we live. It's very hot and you can get sunburned very easily. But getting out in nature and being in the sun, early morning, late afternoon, making sure you're getting that exposure. You want a little bit of that because it feels good and we need it, in terms of that anti-inflammatory. Reducing stress. The good news is all the stuff that's listed where it says reduce stress, we offer all of that here. We have yoga, we have massage, we have Reiki, we do the nutrition counseling, and we have chiropractic. So all of those pieces, as well as doing, eating well, it creates a really healthy lifestyle. And it's important to remember these things are not luxuries. I mean, yes, they do cost money, but they are essential to your overall health. This is a lot less expensive than what we were talking about earlier, the medications that you might pay for at the hospital or being on long-term drugs because of some ailment. The more we can eliminate those things out of our lives by doing this kind of self-care, the better off we are.
I need to say this. I was taking at least 3 Advil every day. I started up a nutrition program. I've been on it for 36 days. I haven't taken one.
Yeah, that's huge. So Beverly's on our nutrition detox weight loss program, and that's a huge accomplishment right there, right? Not feeling a lot of pain, not needing to take Advil or anything that's going to help supplement that. Thank you for sharing that. So on the back page, it talks about eating locally and seasonally. Alan's really addressed that, but the truth is, when you get food that comes from another location, you do not know what they've had to do to make that continue to stay fresh. We literally have our farmers coming from their fields and showing up at a number of farmers markets throughout the area, and I encourage you to try to go to those if you can. I was trying to get you a current 2017 list, but the only one I had was 2016, and I don't know if they're all accurate, so I didn't put that in your sheet. Yeah, but it should be coming out because usually it starts up again this month. Yeah. That would be great. We can do that, maybe copies, and we'll leave them up at the front desk, so if you want to see when the new farmers markets are and what time and stuff.
Kaiser's is open on Thursday.
Which one?
Kaiser,
Kaiser, Thursday, the Kaiser right here. What time?
right here. I'm not sure what time. I think
Okay.
they open at 9.
Okay.
And they're local people.
Yeah, and I know that the Whole Foods one is at 1 o'clock, is like 9 to 1 on Tuesdays. Yeah, so there's quite a few, but I want to get that list, the current one, and make sure we get that to you guys. Supplementation is also really important. We talk about trace minerals and the pink Himalayan salts. We also provide those here for you. They do mineralize your water. They help alkaline everything. They help with joints and muscle aches. I have people who take it who have like restless leg syndrome and have difficulty sleeping, and that seems to, once they've hydrated cellularly, goes away, not a concern. That is a big part of getting toxins out of you. You have to hydrate very deeply on the cellular level and flush, plump those cells up and then flush them out. It's the only way to do it. That's why a lot of people who might drink a lot of water, but they're not actually putting the minerals in them, are not as hydrated as they think they really should be. And they're not getting the results that they want, right? So, here we have fish oils. We have the omega-3s here as well, vitamin D, vitamin C, and the B complex. All of those combined. I really think, are most people in here taking vitamin D? Yeah, good. Here's the thing. Obviously, it's an interesting society right now. We wear a lot of sunblock to keep the sun out, but we're taking vitamin D to help make up for the deficiency, right? It's a little confusing at times. But the vitamin D, I kind of call it the miracle drug. And as a marriage family therapist, I highly recommend for my clients who are struggling with any kind of depression. And the vitamin D helps kind of lift and elevate, and they see a bit of a difference using that. So I just think it's one of those vitamins that is really, really helpful. So let's talk a little bit about the detox and intermittent fasting, and basically kind of the program that we're offering here. The idea of intermittent fasting is we want to balance the hormones, we want to lower insulin levels, we want to reduce belly fat, and the whole concept is that you give your body a break from eating constantly. There's a lot of information out there, the diabetic diet where you're supposed to eat multiple meals throughout the day. The problem with that is your body never actually gets a break and never gets the chance to fully digest and metabolize everything. So our suggestion here and the way we run our program, especially the detox part of it, is you're doing an intermittent fast, which means you're not having breakfast, and then you're doing a lunch and a dinner, and it's all going to be whole, real food, a certain amount of food that you'll be eating, and we'll be talking about like weighing your food and stuff like that, but then you're also eating the proper kind of food. So that combination allows the body to start healing through the day, and then at night it gives it a rest. And we don't do this long term because you don't want to be doing fasting long term, but the intermittent fasting, and a lot of research has come out of University of Southern California on this exact subject, they're finding that it's actually helping lower all sorts of issues. Like people are having diabetes and high blood pressure. People, of course, with weight issues are looking to drop some pounds. But it's the insulin-resistant piece. And that's the reason why people struggle a lot with their weight, is their body just cannot keep up the level that it needs to. So in your packet, I've also included just a whole dietary guide in terms of anti-inflammatory foods that work, some ones to stay away from, kind of basically what I was covering tonight, but a little more in depth. I've also put in a healing food shopping list. And you'll notice that under some of them, for example, under fish, wild caught only, not farm raised. Dairy, raw if you can, or low temp processed, organic. The meat, organic and grass fed. And then as far as the fats and oils, making sure it's organic and unrefined. So this is the kind of thing you can keep. There's two sides of it. There's supplements on the back that's recommended, condiments, sweeteners. Because a lot of times people just don't know. There's so much information out there, it gets really, really confusing. So even just in terms of sweeteners, having raw honey and stevia, those are natural. We know that our body knows what to do with those. Same thing with the pink Himalayan salts. Table salt, not good. Stripped down of minerals, not much. Not much quality. Our body takes it in, and then since it doesn't know what to do with it, it retains it. So that's why a lot of people have issues with water retention or maybe high blood pressure. When you do pink Himalayan salts, the body says, I know all these minerals, I know what to do with them, I know how to process them through my body, and they go where they need to go. So little changes like that, and all this is listed on here for you. So, as far as what we have to offer for you, if you're interested at all, you can come and meet with me for a complimentary session where you'll get to do our body composition analysis machine. Basically, that's going to let me know sort of where your baseline is right now. It's going to look at your weight. It's going to look at your visceral fat, which is the fat around the heart and the organs, the stuff we can't see, but the scary stuff that's more genetically driven. It's going to look at your body fat percentage and your BMI. So where are you in that range, and how much of that is being influenced by your diet and your lifestyle. So that'll help us kind of look and frame a plan that works best for you. And then it also looks at your metabolic age. How efficiently are you actually metabolizing your food? So that's always kind of the aha for people. You know, they'll see it, and whatever your age is, that typically ends up being older. You know, it's a rare person who's younger, but I have had one of them. And I know Ashton has been one of those few. But, you know, if everyone knows who Ashton is, she's doing yoga constantly. She eats really well. She's very fit. So knowing our metabolic age really helps us know what changes we need to make. So I highly encourage you to come on in. You know, that's no charge. It's just 30 minutes, so we can get you scheduled tonight if you want to. And then you can learn more about our programs that we offer. We have a full detox program. We have a weight loss program. And we can kind of gear things towards whatever you are in need of right now. Okay? Good. Did I cover everything you need?
I think so.
Do you have any questions?
No, can I just say one more thing?
Yes.
Okay, I talked about not taking pain pills.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, 6 weeks ago, I had a very busy day. There's no way I would be here tonight. I wouldn't have the energy. I still got energy.
Yes.
The energy level is amazing to me.
So that's been one of the big differences you've
And that's
noticed.
been- yes.
Yeah, and you know, a lot of people, one of their concerns is how hard it must be to start cutting all these things out and making the changes. Did you experience that?
No, it's just I really want a piece of cherry pie. But I have friends who talk about, they keep talking about desserts in front of me. It doesn't bother me.
Yes.
I go out to eat, people have these sandwiches with this bread.
Yeah.
You know, that doesn't bother me. I get my grilled chicken without any, oil or anything, and it's just fine.
Yeah.
You know, nobody's fat food impresses me. I
Right.
don't think, oh my gosh, I wish I had that.
So would you have said it was different before starting the program? Did those things look really appealing and like pull at you?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Bread? Oh, my
Yeah.
goodness, yes.
So really, as you've balanced your body and cleaned it out, there's the hormones of balance, the sugar cravings of balance. That's kind of what you're saying, because those things are not as appealing. Doesn't mean you don't want it once in a while, and certainly when we've talked, so our initial part of our program is you're not really having any of that, and then we start integrating good other foods back in, and then so we know cherry pie's on your list, so.
I'm waiting for avocados.
And avocados, yeah, exactly. Any other questions, or anyone want to share any of their experience?
So that Himalayan salt, I mean, is your water, does it taste salty or you don't taste it?
You know, it depends on how much water. I like mine honestly really salty, so I put it in a little shot glass with the trace minerals, and I just shoot it back. And then I have my regular water.
Explains a few things.
It's really just water.
What about my favorite food, ACV?
Yeah, actually, I also put my apple cider vinegar in that shot. I think of it as a medicinal shot, to be honest with you. And it's, it is salty, but I like the salt taste. For people who don't, who still need it, put it in a larger glass of water and let it dissolve, and you don't taste it as much. All right, well, thank you so much for coming out tonight.